I'm in my room in Aberdeen. I arrived yesterday morning. I spent the entire day walking around as much of the city as I could. It was a pretty typical Scottish day, overcast. I saw the sun for probably 5 minutes entirely. Today is much different, very bright, very nice. Um, I understand I should have posted this video before I left to give my apprehensions and, um, you know, excitements and nervous feelings about my project. But since I don't start actually working on my project until Monday, I figured this is still a fine enough time. Um, I I'm giving myself a few days to adjust to the time change. I traveled for 19 hours and arrived here, and then stayed out the whole day and fell asleep a few times on the bus back to the Airbnb that I'm staying at. But might as well start talking about my project. I'm here to study climate change in the Midwest. I'm gonna be working with a professor at the University of Aberdeen here. His name is Pete Smith. He's the lead author on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Specifically, he talks about land use change, agriculture, and the global nitrogen budget, and the best ways to utilize resources and limit, externalities, as you will, from agricultural practices and environmental hazards as a result. Pete and his group, they do a lot of global modeling. They, extensively put out papers that look at simulations of the United Kingdom and Greater Britain's, regional agricultural practices and their greenhouse gas budget. They use a model known as, by the name of DAYCENT, Daily Century model. It's a land surface model, so it uses input variables of climate and weather and steps through on a daily time scale to then feed back into the model and understand what the results will be from these climate models and the resulting interactions between the land and the atmosphere. And what's a useful tool for this, especially with agriculture, is you can schedule daily management practices such as timing of fertilizer, harvest, tillage, and that's pretty unique. And specifically, this model hasn't. It's been run, at a global scale, and then nationally for the United Kingdom here as they do, and once or twice nationally for the United States, but never specifically at the scale of the Midwest United States or Minnesota. And of course, anytime that you are running something or studying something at a coarser resolution, such as a national scale, you're diluting effects that should be concentrated otherwise, and as a result, you increase your error, you increase your uncertainty, and you're also diluting the results. So it's just not going to be as certain. Part of the reason, and especially when you look at Minnesota and the Midwest, it's one of the most if not the most intensively managed agricultural regions in the world. So if you're diluting those effects over the entire country, or regionally to include, Canada as well, and North America in general, then what you're studying and seeing is it's not going to be as close to reality, or as good of a predictor for what we'll see in the future. So using this model and running it for the state of Minnesota and the Midwest will be really powerful. The input variables they talk about climate, weather. They use typical other climate models, CLMs, and specifically there's the models that are cited most often for the IPCC are from the coupled model intercomparison projects, CMIP5. They've had a number of iterations now, and they're now moving on to their sixth phase, and these are hundreds of the world's most heavily vetted and cited and improved upon global climate models that are being utilized in France, Italy, Germany, United States, the United Kingdom here, and as a result, there's when you run hundreds of models independently of each other around the world, and they start seeing similar trends. Global temperature is going to increase, precipitation is going to change, and once these patterns start overlying from independent trials like this, you start to increase your degree of confidence in the results, and start being able to say with higher degree of certainty what may happen. Like I said, though, these are global models, so we have an idea of what's going to happen globally. We know temperatures has an upward moving trend. We know that precipitation patterns are changing. We have an idea of where these patterns will shift to, but specifically once you start looking closely, what region is going to receive the most rain. Southeast Asia may start seeing lots of rain, but what province of China may receive the most in particular? Obviously, knowing this information can help improve infrastructure, city planning, regional planning, and just overall economic practices that can make for a safer, more efficient society globally. And for us in Minnesota, my department studying climate change, greenhouse gases, and in the United Kingdom here, when you start having a concern of what's your footprint, what is your contribution to the global greenhouse gas budget, what can you do to stop that or improve and reduce your impact, knowing what's going to happen 50 years from now, 100 years from now, is really important. And of course, you need to then know, since the greenhouse gas budget is so tightly coupled to climate, you then need to know specifically what is your climate in your region going to look like. So not only will we be running the model here, and I'll be learning to do that during my time here, but we will also be utilizing some downscaled models that professors and individuals in my department at the University of Minnesota have been working on. They have vetted some of the most reliable global climate models from CMIP5 to see which ones reflect and have higher degrees of certainty for Minnesota. And they have then downscaled these models to see what is Minnesota's climate going to look like over 100 years. What regions of Minnesota are going to start seeing higher amounts of rainfall? So the idea of the project here is I will spend my time here in Aberdeen to learn how to run this model. I will then utilize the downscaled climate data from my department and then pair those input variables to the DAYCENT model to then get an idea of what Minnesota's greenhouse gas budget is going to look like over the next 50 years to 100 years, and then specifically using DAYCENT to see what scenarios could reduce or change that greenhouse gas budget, seeing as Minnesota is such an agriculturally intensive state. I am going to spend the 3 weeks here to learn how to run this model, may even begin some trials, and then it shouldn't take too long after that to then start running trial after trial after trial to see what's the best case scenario, and what are the best agricultural management practices that we can use in Minnesota to reduce our greenhouse gas budget. With me, I have brought my computer. I have brought, all my literature stacked in this file to get an idea of the global nitrogen budget, really start brushing up on my literature further, and see what I can't learn about the Scottish agricultural economy, their climate, and even get an idea of what their government's up to. Scotland, from what I can tell, is a pretty progressive country in this front. They have specific departments in their government to address climate change and climate adaptation. Pete Smith, in particular, is part of the climate exchange program here. He's the lead science director for this program, and contributor to the Scottish government's efforts on this front. So I'm really excited. Also, obviously nervous. Getting here was hectic, chaotic. Managing everything up to this point. I would love to share with you all the details on my master's project, but there's too many there, and the purpose of this video is to talk about my project and my time here. So I'm excited to see how this goes, and I'm excited to share my results and what I learned with you in October. Thank you.